Mama Said by Brett Vickers. Mama said I must have been born with 3 eyes, 'cause I'd like to think everything was always about me, me, me. I took her word for it, though I never could find that 3rd eye she talked about. Mama said she didn't need any church to teach her how to live, and she said if she ever felt the need to feel the Holy Spirit, she'd just reach for the contents of her flask. Mama said you gotta be wise when mixin' drinks, 'cause grenadine got the bang of a grenade, and also there ain't anything simple 'bout simple syrup. One time, I asked Mama how come we didn't paint the walls of my room when the paint started chipping off the wood, and she said that it was because painting the walls would reduce the size of the room, and then property value would go down. I said that may be, but then why don't we paint the outside of the house to make our house bigger and bigger? Mama just looked at me and tilted her head and gave a big wink that squinched up half her face into a puddle of wrinkles. She said that if we did that, it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the world, now would it? I said I suppose, but what I really wanted to ask her was why then did she paint her finger and toenails so often if it was hogging up so much space in the world? But I didn't ask her that. Mama said that passing gas is good for the body, 'cause it keeps you grounded. She said it was important not to let the hot air get to your head, even if all that hot air did make you weigh a little less. Mama said that's why lots of the skinny girls on television act like a bunch of congested bimbos all the time. It's 'cause they never pass gas. Mama got mad at me one time for putting coupons in a jar of honey. I told her I'd done it because the coupons was about to expire, and then I reminded her that she had said once that honey would keep forever and always. She whipped me on account of me ruining both the coupons and the honey, but she was smiling the whole time when she smacked me, and she weren't swinging hard as she usually did. It was my favorite time I was whipped ever. This one time our hound got into a bunch of the chocolate we left out on the counter while Mama was baking. Mama got some chemicals out from under the sink and grabbed Clyde by the collar and kept pouring the chemicals into Clyde's mouth until he threw up everywhere. I asked her why she done that, and Mama said that chocolate was poison for dogs, and that sometimes you have to use special poisons to purge the body of normal poisons. When Mama got sick, the poison Dr. Jennings gave Mama made her throw up all the time, just like Clyde did, except she threw up a lot more than just the once, and she never got any better. Before Mama died, she said that she didn't want any sort of fancy burial. Uncle Marty said that we'd get her a sarcophagus and stand it up in the kitchen so she'd be looking over me and always making sure I'd eat my vegetables at the table. Mama said we should just roll her body into some quiet ditch on the side of the road 'cause it would be cheaper, and she wouldn't mind 'cause she'd already be dead. But me and Uncle Marty didn't want to do that, so we got her a coffin when she died. It was big and wooden and had plenty of room inside for Mama to rest even with her fingers and toes painted. Mama said when we die that that's it, that that's the end. But I don't think so, 'cause ever since she died my 3rd eye has showed up. And whenever I close the 2 eyes on my face, my 3rd eye opens up and I can still see Mama right there in front of me. There's nothing and no one else there. And even when I sleep, all I ever see now is Mama, Mama, Mama. "21 Days" by Tina Taco. When Grandma told the story, they were on the boat from Naples for 21 days. They ate from the captain's garbage. They drank from the Atlantic. Her little sister's dress was so short she did not dare stand up in it. For 21 days. Grandma told this story when we asked for a nickel for a soda, a dime for an ice cream. When we complained that the Parker girls across the street all got new shoes, and when we had eaten bread sopped in oil for 10 meals straight. She used it to explain why our pants were either cuffed or too tight in the crotch, why Mom had to spend nights at the curtain factory, why Grandpa hid, why they never liked Dad at any of his jobs. We did not tell Grandma that at PS4 they taught us how a boat from Naples to America did not take 21 days. Or that Uncle Polly, on his 2nd bottle one Thanksgiving, told us that nothing ever tasted as sweet as wine at the captain's table. Or that salt water kills you. And we did not tell Grandma how, when her cancer got bad, we started sorting through her things. And how the pictures were there. Hundreds and hundreds. Grandma, tiny, in a silk hat. Her father, in pin-straight slacks. A brick house so big it did not fit in the frame. Ladies in long dresses, dancing, looking like they'd never sit down. there. Welcome to No Extra Words, the Flash Fiction podcast. My name is Chris Baker-Dersch. I'm your producer and editor. Today's title is Improving the Truth, which was actually my working title for this podcast before I started it. It comes from my favorite Disney movie, which is actually one of Disney's biggest commercial failures, so that maybe is an indication of my taste. But my favorite Disney movie is a 1990s musical called Newsies, about the newsboys' strike of 1890. And the main character, Jack Kelly, is this homeless kid who lives on the streets of New York City and sells newspapers, and he loves to give this backstory of himself about how his family's out in Santa Fe, and he's going to go meet them, he's going to be a cowboy, all this stuff. And one of his buddies catches him in this lie one day, and he says to his buddy, it ain't lying, it's just improving the truth a little bit. And my husband told me I could not use that title for this podcast because it made it sound like it was a podcast not so much about short stories, but about telling lies, which I'm not sure there's that big a difference. But we went with no extra words and have no regrets about it. But that feeling is exactly what today's stories are about. I originally titled this episode Stories from the Family Reunion, but it was kind of bland. I think 21 Days, which you just heard, really exemplifies this feeling. Everybody has that elderly relative who tells the same stories over and over and over again. In my family, it was an aunt that we called Other Aunt Marge there are two Aunt Marges, pretty simple. But she was the one who told the same story again and again and again. And the more you were listening, the more details came out of the story. And I think everybody has these family reunion story moments like this. And that's what today is. It's these very short snippets of story that take the truth and just improve it just a little bit by the voice of the storyteller. So these stories are all about voice, which I'm gonna admit made them a challenge to record because I'm just me, and I recorded all 4 of them. And so I tried to inject as much voice and life into these characters as possible without making it showy. So I give the authors all the credit in the world for creating the different voices, and any of the blame for them sounding too much alike goes to me. We're going to get a little bit lighter. There's no more cancer, I promise, in the next 2 stories that are coming. The first 2 I love because they have this sort of matriarch figure in them. But we are going to get lighter. Nobody's going to die of cancer in the next 2 stories. Going Off the Rails is the story of one family's epic move. And then we're going to end with the funny one, which really is the story of the most wild family wedding reception I think you can possibly imagine. We're going to keep it short today because we have 4 stories we're cramming in. 4 stories, 4 contributors, and no extra words first. You've got 2 more stories coming your way. I will see you next week on No Extra Words. Going Off the Rails by Brianne Holmes. When we bought that railroad car for $4,000 off Craigslist, we didn't even consider how we transport it. See, my wife had just inherited this big piece of property slap dab in the middle of nowhere, somewheres near Wilmington. And we said to ourselves, what are we going to do with all that land? And then there's our son, living at home, taking college through the internet, griping day and night. And plus we had that $10,000 my wife inherited 15 years ago from her great-grandmother. She was fortunate when it came to deceased relations. And so we said to our son, son, if you keep an eye on that property for us, we'll make sure you have a roof over your head. And lo and behold, a railroad car weren't but a quarter the cost of a used mobile home. Deal, I said, deal. It was only after we wrote the check that we realized there might be difficulties. We got nothing but drawn-out silences and bewildered-like questions from near every trucking company we called. They do mobile homes. You've seen them down the highway, with their wide load yellow tape flapping in the wind. So I thought, why not railroad cars? But apparently it don't work like that. Our son found the phone number for the Association of American Railroads, and I called them to see if they couldn't just bring it on down the line. But the girl who answered the phone just said, "Sir, you bought a what?" And I could hear her covering up her receiver and laughing. Customer service ain't what it used to be. Now this is the last straw in a haystack, and so I pay a visit to a buddy of mine who drives a tow truck, and I say, listen, if you can't help me, my great-grandmother-in-law's death is in vain. So we go on down and hitch the railroad car to his tow truck and take it real slow down the interstate. You should have seen the faces of near every motorist we passed. Reception by P.J. Sambo. What kind of person am I? The kind of person who has her own sister rendered unconscious and quietly escorted out of her wedding reception. What kind of person is my sister? The kind of person who gets drunk and then tries to run her fat mouth off about things she shouldn't in front of my new husband and in-laws. What kind of people are my new husband and in-laws? The kind of warm, generous, kind-hearted people who do not need to know anything about my life or my activities prior to my engagement. At least that was how my best friend put it. What kind of person is my best friend? The kind of person who not only packs a taser in a special garter holster to a wedding reception, because you just never know when family and a free bar collide, but can also understand by gestures and meaningful looks the fact that I need a drunken relative brought down real fast. What kind of person am I for inviting my sister in the first place? The kind of person who is, at times, too susceptible to passive aggressiveness to say no to a persistent family member who, after being banned from the wedding ceremony, elbows their way into the wedding reception. What kind of wedding reception did I end up having? The kind of wedding reception that is a gathering of loved ones and just a celebration of who we are as a couple.